award-winning Tennessee Wildcast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee Wildcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching, for listening. We got a great show lined up for you today, and we'll jump into that in just a minute. Don King is helping me co-host.
Yes, sir. It doesn't get any wilder than this show is going to be. I tell you, we're going international today.
Yeah, we are.
Something special for you. Hey, and before we get started, I just want to do a little shout out to WZYX in Cowan, Tennessee. They were our flagship station to run the show, to run Wildcast on the radio.
Yeah.
Even before Wildcast Extra came into be. But anyway, we appreciate them in the Cowan area and all the listeners down there. So
we say it a lot. We appreciate our radio stations. They do a lot for us to get this message out there. Yep. We appreciate folks who tune us in on podcasting apps, for watching on YouTube and Facebook, and just keep following us, and we'll keep
spreading the word
and getting you some good information out there. One thing I do want to mention is our hats. The Wildcast hats are in the e-store now, shop.gooutdoorstennessee.com. You can purchase a Wildcast hat if you're a fan, or you can purchase one of our Tennessee Wildlife hats. There's many to choose from. Also stickers and water bottles and all kinds of fun stuff there.
Good stuff.
Go check that out. And like I said, the shop.gooutdoorstennessee.com. And then, looking for events, gooutdoorstennessee.com. Buy your license, look for events, things like that.
There you go.
Always fun stuff there. Well, today we're going to be talking about WITA, Wildlife Investigators Training Alliance, and we have a special guest, and she's no stranger to Wildcast.
That's right.
Or to the studio here. She's been with us a few times, Miss Stephanie Durno Karns, but she is now in a new role, and we're going to learn about that today. Stephanie, we're glad you're here.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah.
A little bittersweet, I won't lie. I've been missing it around here.
Yeah, Stephanie just decided to leave the agency and do something she loves full time in another capacity.
A lifelong dream, I'm learning. We're
going to learn about that today. So fill folks in on what's going on.
So I was working with TWRA. I loved working for the agency. I was here as the assistant chief of the game species section, and I loved it. I love the agency, but I finally had the opportunity to, again, pursue a lifelong dream, and my husband and I started a nonprofit back in 2018 called Wildlife Investigators Training Alliance, or WITA.
Uh-huh.
And we train African game rangers, prosecutors, investigators, and judges how to combat illegal wildlife trafficking. And we do most of our work in Africa, but we also train rangers and officers here in the U.S. and North America.
Wow. Yeah.
We are so blessed and fortunate to have this opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you worked in Africa before? Were your previous experiences there, or was your previous experience just in wildlife here in the States?
So my first real job as a wildlife biologist was in Costa Rica.
Okay.
I had the opportunity when I was in college to work on a research project studying white-lipped peccaries and jaguars in southwestern Costa Rica. So that's where I started out. And then I worked in Colorado for the Colorado Division of Wildlife / Colorado Parks and Wildlife for almost 20 years before I moved here to Tennessee. And my husband I was an officer in Colorado and a wildlife biologist. And then my husband has been working here for TWRA for, 26 years, I think it is now. So he's also an experienced wildlife guy. He's been an investigator for the agency that whole time. So,
cool.
Yeah, we have a lot of experience. Most of it has been in North America, but the connections across the world with wildlife trafficking have created a network that serves us well. So,
and you said this has been a passion of yours for your whole life, even like back to age 6, I think you said.
Yeah, actually, at 5 years old, I decided I wanted to be Jane Goodall, and I've been working at it. It's taken me a few years. I'm still not Jane Goodall, but she has been my mentor and my inspiration my entire life. So it's good to set your goals high. I'll never be quite as amazing as Dr. Jane, but gotten to see some neat stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, we've touched on it just a little bit, but kind of explain about what WITA is and what y'all do for those guys and gals over in Africa.
Sure. So we do 3 different kind of directions. We're trying to build capacity in Africa to fight illegal wildlife trafficking. So we do equipment donations, where we donate supplies and equipment to rangers and field staff and investigators. And then we also provide funding and training to those game rangers, investigators, and prosecutors and judges in how to combat illegal wildlife trafficking. So we're looking to build capacity through training, shared knowledge, and networking, and then also through equipment donations.
And it's no secret that this is an issue. I mean, wildlife trafficking is a big issue.
It is a huge issue. It's the 4th largest illicit network in the world behind human trafficking, arms smuggling, and narcotics distribution. And so it's the 4th largest industry in the world, illegal industry.
Wow.
So it's a huge industry, but it also has incredibly broad impacts. We all know with COVID, the impacts of the potential for disease spread from wildlife to humans. That's a result of the illegal wildlife trade. But there's cultural implications to the source countries. There are degeneration of cultural heritage, the loss of biodiversity, and all of these impact not only the source countries like Africa, but also those transit countries where they're moving the animals through, and also the destination countries. So it's a massive, it's a global problem. And
there's many species that are affected by this. I know you've gave me a few notes here on some of the animals that are affected, some of the main ones, but talk a little bit about what's happening to elephants and rhinos and things like that.
Sure. So we want to distinguish between 2 different things. There is some sustainable and legal wildlife trade, right? Here in the U.S., we have legal harvest. We have sustainable management, and some of that is traded. There's some legal ways that you can buy and sell wildlife parts generally. And that is true also in other countries. So what we're talking about really is the illegal wildlife trade and unsustainable. So you have a lot of different markets. You have the decorative market for things like ivory or spotted cat skins or elephant's footstools. You also have the bushmeat trade, where people in rural areas kill wildlife for consumption. But distinct from that, bushmeat, so exotic species of animals, are an Epicurean adventure in the more developed countries. So animals are even being killed for their meat just because it's
something different.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not because they're hungry, but it's
exactly. It's something that's cool, a new adventure, something to show your status. And that's just tragic. Shark fin soup is just where animals are killed just for a single part or piece that is just a novelty. So those are huge. The pet trade, animals come from the wild to be traded in more developed or more affluent countries. Birds from Central and South America, reptiles from Australia, Africa, the Americas, they're all used in the pet trade. Small animals like a genet, which is a cute little terribly feisty animal that kind of looks like a cat from Africa. I actually had a case with that many years ago where someone had a genet that they kept as a pet, and they called it My Little Stinky, and it was just a terrible pet. It was mean, it was vicious, and it stunk. But
it's a wild animal.
It's a wild animal. Yeah, they had whole rooms in their house that were blocked off. Gosh. So, the pet trade has all these great ideas, and really they're wild animals.
Sure.
So the pet trade is a real component, and then many animals are trafficked in the practice of traditional Chinese medicine, which is an ancient medicinal practice that uses many different components, but some of those from wildlife that are included are rhino horn, pangolin scales, which is the pangolin is the single most trafficked mammal in the world. Also, bear gallbladders.
From right here in Tennessee. Even.
Exactly, right here in Tennessee. Those bear species across the world are killed and farmed for their gallbladders to be used in traditional Chinese medicine.
Which there's no evidence that even some of these, maybe some of these, but not all of these even work, right?
Yeah, there's been a lot of scientific research into traditional Chinese medicinal practices and components, and to my knowledge, I don't know of a single practice or component that has shown to be as effective as modern medicine. So there may, so modern medicine is a good thing to rely on,
right?
rather than ground up rhino horn.
Well, we've touched on a little bit of why, and even after some of these folks that do this are taken into custody or however you phrase that, they still take the risk. You mentioned 30 years of IHL. Explain what IHL is. So
many countries recently, many of the countries where we work, especially in Southern and Eastern Africa, have been strengthening their laws and penalties for illegal wildlife trafficking. And for instance, in Malawi, the penalty for killing an elephant is 30 years IHL. What's IHL? Indentured hard labor. So the governments and the people in these source countries recognize the value, the importance of these existing live animals, and are really increasing the penalties and their capacity to fight wildlife trafficking. So that's the good news.
Yeah.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
And that's awesome news. That's great news. But then there are some still situations where corruption is involved, and there's issues there too, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Certainly the U.S. and the Americas are not immune to this. But corruption is a huge problem in the illegal wildlife trade. And, a lot of that is the perception that it's sort of a victimless crime and therefore less important. And so especially people who aren't passionate about wildlife and conservation and just the inherent intrinsic value of wildlife and our natural resources, they see it as a victimless crime and are more willing to either look the other way or take some money in order to ignore wildlife crime.
Speaking of passionate, the recruits and the folks that you train, the rangers, where do they come from?
So most of the rangers, like our game wardens here, those are the field folks. Those are the guys that are, and gals, because there's lots of women rangers there. They are the front line out on the ground fighting the poachers in the field. And most of them come from local villages. Some have a wildlife degree. Some may just have sort of our equivalent of a high school education, but they're in the job because they love their wildlife, because it's their home. It's their I hate it when I don't have the right words.
Yeah. We know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when I try and talk about wildlife, because obviously I don't.
Passion shows.
Yeah, the passion, and I am at a loss for words, but they care so much about it that they're out on the ground fighting this crime, and they faced enormous odds. So we were talking about corruption, and I'm just going to go back to that just real quick. The UN, when documenting wildlife corruption crimes, has shown that only about 7% or less of corruption in wildlife crime is from the rangers. The majority of the corruption is actually coming at higher levels or from folks who are actually unaffiliated with those who should be protecting the wildlife. So it's more customs officials or non-wildlife law enforcement kind of thing.
Right.
So that's reassuring. Because those rangers face extraordinary odds. They are poorly equipped because many of the government agencies are not well funded. And the poachers are backed by multinational billion-dollar criminal syndicates,
right?
Which is just extraordinary. They don't have the same equipment, the supplies, and the training to be battling these people who are, supporting an industry that's the fourth largest criminal industry in the world.
Right.
So these folks are coming from the villages, and they just love their wildlife so much that they're risking their lives.
And that's another place where you guys are able to help, right? With helping with some of the equipment needs that they have.
Absolutely. So many of the rangers, like I said, are ill-equipped because of poor government funding. And so one thing that WITA does is we organize equipment donations, things like boots, uniform supplies, spotting scopes, GPSs, binoculars, those kind of things that are used for either patrol or investigation, obviously not firearms or any kind of anything that could be used in combat or that kind of thing.
Right.
But so we work with agencies across the country, not even just across the country, North America again.
Yeah.
So we've received equipment donations from Canada, Oregon State Police, Arizona Game and Fish, Tennessee State University, and the University of Tennessee, and then in particular the good folks of Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
Yeah.
Right.
That TWRA. Officers and biologists have been some of the biggest supporters. So they donate the used equipment that we can no longer use, whether it's worn out or
slightly used.
Slightly used. Yeah.
Usable yet. Though.
Usable.
Outgrown.
That might have happened to me once or twice.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So items that can't be used, but do still have some useful life in them, are donated, and we do repairs or simple fixes that can make them usable and extend their life. And so we bring boots and GPSs, binoculars, that kind of thing. We've donated, not we. WITA has organized and helped facilitate the donation of over $300,000 worth of equipment and supplies for African rangers.
Wow.
And we are fortunate. So TWRA folks have been a huge donation source for that equipment. But we've been lucky. We partner with another nonprofit here in North America that also operates in Africa. It's called the Attorney General Alliance Africa, and they support the rule of law across the world. And they are originally comprised of attorneys general across the U.S., but they do trainings and workshops and networking opportunities for field law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges. And so they have financially supported a lot of these donations.
Wow.
The shipping is incredibly expensive to get it over there.
Oh, I bet.
And so the funding for that is really critical. So once we have the equipment, even if we don't pay for that, the shipping just to get it there is challenging.
Packaging, I can only imagine.
Yeah. So the logistics there are a trick.
Well, a couple of things, just kind of to back up maybe a little bit. Boots are a big deal. You talked about how these patrols are patrolling not a herd of rhino, but what?
It's called a crash of rhinos.
A crash of rhino.
I love it.
That they're on patrol 24/7, and the fact that just a good pair of boots, not a rubber boot and things, it's a huge deal for them.
Absolutely. So, like you were talking about, this crash of rhinos is, and many of the rhinos across the continent, across the world, are protected 24/7 by government rangers, and many times these folks don't have access to good boots, so they're on their feet all day long. Sometimes they're on patrol for 2 weeks at a time. And many of them have, say, used rubber boots that are, up to your calf in 100-degree heat. And we teach a variety of classes and do different workshops, but we were training some rangers in first aid earlier this year, and one of the rangers was doing CPR, practicing CPR on a mannequin, and as he was kneeling down, you could see that the sole of his boot was only attached at the toe and the heel, and there was airspace between across the sole of his foot. So those are the kind of people that are going to benefit from the equipment donations that we arrange. So it will enable him to walk further and more safely to protect the wildlife that we all love.
Right.
Well, you shared this brochure with me. There's a lot of information in it, but outside of just the donations and things, what kind of training? Can you talk a little bit more specific about some of the training opportunities? You mentioned a goat earlier. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not. But
I will. So we try and teach at all levels of investigation and prevention, investigation, detection of wildlife crime. And when I say Wildlife Investigators Training Alliance, we are an alliance of investigators, patrol wildlife officers, and prosecutors who have worked in wildlife law enforcement. And the alliance, these instructors come from North America and Africa, and they bring their expertise in the entire spectrum of ways that we can detect and deter wildlife crime. So we teach courses in crime scene management, evidence handling, surveillance, digital forensics, and my favorite is time of death estimation. And so they can estimate when an animal died to then base some of their investigations on that time frame. And like you said, there is a goat involved. We actually do kill a goat for that course, and the participants are able to monitor and document the changes in the body of the animal and the insect colonization across the week time frame of that course. And so it gives them the opportunity. Obviously, there's some translational challenges from a goat, but we really try and work that course with observational and qualitative measurements, because many times if they're on patrol for 2 weeks, they aren't carrying a bunch of equipment.
Right.
They don't have access to that sort of thing. And so we try to do courses like that with just what they have available.
it's kind of it's almost an old school type of investigation. It's like I said, they don't have the tools, they don't have the knowledge sometimes to use these certain tools, and
That's exactly it.
I think it's pretty cool that you're able to train them in that way.
Kind of boil it down to the basics. You know, what using what they have to work with to learn and to document all these things. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one way we approach it. But we also do, I was talking about some of the other workshops and classes that we do, digital forensics, surveillance. When we do courses like that are more advanced and require equipment, we bring that equipment with us, and we train the investigators or the officers in its use, and then we leave it with them. So we bring some pretty sophisticated surveillance devices and spotting scopes, optics for all the different types of investigations, digital forensic devices, that kind of thing. Those are very, very expensive, but they really don't have access to them in many cases. So we bring them over. We teach the class in how to use them. We do practical scenarios where they're out in the streets of whatever capital city we're in for the week, and they actually practice with the equipment, hands-on, completely immersive, reality-based, and then we leave them with it. So
wow,
yeah, we're actually leaving tomorrow to do a course. We'll be gone for the next 3 weeks, so we'll be teaching an advanced wildlife investigative techniques in Zambia with Zambia DMPW. And
Wow.
We're fortunate our partner, AGA Africa, the Attorney General Alliance Africa, is helping us with that course as well.
That's great.
Yeah, they're a great partner. They have really helped us out, and our building capacity is a team effort for sure. So we're lucky to have them as partners.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, before we run out of time, I want to make sure that folks know how to donate and how to help. I have that in bold letters here, how to help. So I guess gear, monetary donations, what can they do and how do they get it to you?
So that's great. Yeah. We are accepting donations of field equipment, and it needs to be in good, serviceable condition. But binoculars, spotting scopes, GPSs, that kind of stuff is incredibly valuable. Mm-hmm. Boots, good quality footwear, mm-hmm. still in usable condition, and uniform supplies, things that can be used on patrol in the bush, that kind of thing. Even backpacks. That sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So we are accepting donations. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the shipping costs are extraordinary.
Right.
And the cost of that really advanced technology is also expensive. So monetary donations are always appreciated.
Yes.
You can find our website at WITAtrain.org, and there's information on how to contact us on that. But you can also email info@WITAtrain.org. So that's just info@WITAtrain.org.
WITA.
Yep.
WITA. And so info at WITATRAIN.org.
There you go.
Right.
Yep. And we would love some volunteers. We don't need help with actually doing the instruction. Everybody says, I would love to help.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. We are very, very fortunate that with our combined 50 years of working in wildlife law enforcement, we have a suite of friends who are long-term colleagues, experienced investigators who help us out. So, but we can use a lot of help. So just email us at info@WITAtrain.org.
Awesome.
There are some things that could be done with helping with shipping for this equipment, right?
Yes.
And prepping the equipment and the uniforms and that kind of thing before. So
Absolutely.
And I bet there's some on-the-job training for the volunteers that step up too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Good deal.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you to TWRA for letting us come in. What a great agency.
Definitely.
Thanks for all you've meant to our agency too.
Yeah, you're going to be missed for sure.
Yep.
But I know you're doing good work, and I'm excited that you get to pursue your passion and do it with your best friend, and it's awesome. So remember, WITAtrain.org and info@WITAtrain.org. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. info@WITAtrain.org. Todd, put that on the screen so people can see that. This has been great. Thank you for this information. Thank you for what you do, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thanks for getting the word out.
Yeah, you bet.
Don, thank you.
Sure.
And this is Tennessee Wildcast. Keep coming back, keep watching, keep listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee Wildcast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.